Hey guys, so here's the next part for the 4.2 day 1 notes. We're once again going to graph quadratic functions in vertex form. Okay, so here we are going to figure out the vertex first. So remember, the vertex is going to be our h and k value. So our h is the opposite of what we see, so that's going to be -4. Now notice we don't have anything for our k, so that's going to be 0, okay? Our a value, notice it's going to be -1/2, because that's always the number in front of the parentheses. And then our axis of symmetry, remember, is always x equals whatever the h value is, which in this case is -4. Okay, our next thing is we're going to list the transformations. Okay, first thing, let's look at our a value. Is it positive or negative? It's negative, so that means we open down. So therefore, we have a reflection, and this is going to be a reflection over the x-axis. Yes. So make sure you also have that over the x-axis, okay? It'll always be a reflection over the x-axis. Now, from there, let's see if we have a vertical stretch or shrink. Now, we need to take the absolute value of the -1/2. When we do, we get +1/2, and so therefore that's less than 1, and so we get a vertical shrink. And please don't forget 1/2 or by 1/2, okay? So you gotta have that number to represent it as well. Okay, lastly, let's think about our translations. So we have our h. So notice it's the +4, so we go the opposite direction, so that means we translate left 4. And notice we don't have a k value, so we don't move up or down at all, okay? Make sure you're using the correct vocabulary words, like reflection, vertical shrink, translate. And then make sure you have like over the x-axis if it ever reflects. And if it's a vertical shrink or stretch, make sure it's of or by whatever the number, and then translate, and then talk about by how much. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and do our XY table. I'm going to add, once again, another part here to represent. We're going to do 5 points. So we have -4, 0. Now we're going to pick 3 or 2 points that are smaller, 2 points that are bigger. So smaller will be -5 and -6. Bigger will be -3 and -2. Go ahead, plug those in to get your answers. Okay. So when we do, we get for our -5 and -3, -1/2. And for -2 and -6, we get -2, okay? And remember, to do that, you just need to use your calculator. I'll show for the -2. So here, we want to do -1/2. I'm going to go ahead and do parentheses. So I did -1 divided by 2, and then another parentheses, and then you can plug your -2 into there. And then we're going to have our +4, and then square it. And we get the -2. So this I did have to put in parentheses, so be careful with that, okay? Okay. So now we're going to plot the points. And let's see if we do open down here. So we're at -1, 2, 3, 4. And then we go to 1/2. And here you kind of just have to be careful. Just go where you can for those halves. And then we go to -2. So 1, 2. 1, 2. So we do open down. This does look a little bit wider than our parent function. Therefore, our vertex is a maximum because it is the highest point on the graph. Okay, let's do our last example. I would like you guys to go ahead and pause the video and try this one on your own. Okay, let's see what you got here. So let's first talk about the vertex. That's going to be our h and k. So here we have +5 and 1. So remember, h is the opposite of what you do. Our a value is a +2. Axis symmetry is going to be x equals 5. Now let's talk about the transformations. Okay, so notice that our a value is positive, so that means our graph is going to open up, so there's no reflection. We really don't need to put that in there. Now, our a value is something other than 1, so let's take the opposite value of 2. When we do that, we should get 2, which is greater than 1, so that means we're going to have a vertical stretch by 2, or you can say up to. It's up to you. Okay, now let's talk about our translations. So I do translate, and because I have x minus 5, that means I go the opposite, so I translate right 5. And k is exactly as we see it, so we say and up 1, right? So because our graph is going to be opening up, that means our vertex is going to be a minimum. So it's going to be the lowest point on our graph. Now let's see that by plotting some points. Okay, I'm going to put this into, I'm going to add another here. So we have our vertex at 5, 1. And I used points like 6 and 7, and then 4 and 3. Okay, and once again, it doesn't really matter the order of your x here, so you could have done like 4 and 3 and then 6 and 7. It will work as well. So now let's go ahead and plug these into our calculator. I'm going to plug 4 and 3. I'm going to show you that on the calculator here, so you can kind of just see to make sure you got them correct. So we have 2. Now this, we don't need to put the 2 in parentheses because it's not a fraction. So anytime you have a fraction in front as your a value, make sure you put it in parentheses and then everything else in parentheses. Otherwise, it's not going to calculate it correctly. If it is just basically an integer or a whole number, then you really don't need the parentheses around that too. So then we're going to do parentheses. Now we need to do for this part, minus 5, that should be minus. So make sure you use the minus sign, and then we square it, and then we do plus 1. And we get 3 there. Now let's plug 3 in for x, so I have 2. And then I do 3 minus 5, square that, and then plus 1. We get 9. So for our 4, we get 3. And of course, 6 is going to be the same. And then for 3, we get 9, so 7 is going to be the same. Let's go ahead and plot these points. So 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then up 1. And then I do 4, 3, so 3, and then 9. So notice we do open up, so we did this correctly, and our vertex is a minimum. Okay, make sure if you have any questions over this, you contact me, and make sure you work on the homework. I'll see you guys later.